In the vast, muddy landscape of the Western Front, 1915 dawned with a sense of grim stalemate. Trenches scarred the earth from the Swiss border to the North Sea, and both sides were desperately searching for a way to break the deadlock. For the British Expeditionary Force, that search would lead them to a small French village called Neuve Chapelle. This battle, often overshadowed by the Somme or Passchendaele, was a pivotal moment. It was the first major, planned British offensive of the war, and the lessons learned here, paid for in blood, would shape the very nature of trench warfare for years to come. Before we dive into the battle itself, let's set the stage. By early 1915, the British Army was undergoing a massive transformation. The small professional force that had landed in France in 1914 had been decimated. In its place, a new army was rising, filled with volunteers and territorials. They were eager, but inexperienced. The strategic situation was pressing. The Russians, their allies on the Eastern Front, were under severe pressure from German and Austro-Hungarian forces. The French, who bore the brunt of the fighting in the West, urged their British allies to launch an offensive to relieve that pressure and prevent Germany from transferring troops eastward. The chosen target was the Orbis Ridge, a slight elevation in the otherwise flat terrain that gave the Germans a significant observational advantage. The first step to capturing that ridge was to break through the German lines at the village of Neuve Chapelle. The plan, devised by General Sir Douglas Haig, commander of the British First Army, was revolutionary for its time. Unlike the piecemeal attacks of 1914, this would be a meticulously planned set-piece battle. The core of the plan rested on the artillery. The idea was to use a short but incredibly intense artillery bombardment to obliterate the German frontline trenches and shatter their barbed wire defenses. This concept, known as the preliminary bombardment, was designed to allow the infantry to walk across no man's land and occupy the enemy positions with minimal resistance. For the first time, the British were concentrating a massive number of guns, over 340 of them, along a very narrow front, just about 2,000 yards wide. The bombardment was scheduled to last for exactly 35 minutes. It was a bold, almost mathematical approach to warfare. The hope was that sheer firepower could solve the puzzle of the trenches. At 7:30 a.m. on March 10, 1915, the world around Neuve Chapelle exploded. The sky was torn apart by the roar of hundreds of British guns. It was the heaviest and most concentrated bombardment of the war to date. Shells rained down on the German positions, churning the earth, vaporizing barbed wire and collapsing dugouts. For the German soldiers hunkered down in their trenches, it was a terrifying, earth-shattering experience. As the bombardment lifted from the front line and shifted to targets deeper behind, whistles blew along the British trenches. Over the top went the men of the British 7th and 8th Divisions, along with Indian troops from the Garhwal Brigade and the Meerut Division. The initial assault was a stunning success, at least in the center. The artillery had done its job almost perfectly. The attackers found the German frontline trenches smashed to pieces, the wire cut, and the defenders either dead, wounded, or completely shell-shocked. British and Indian soldiers advanced rapidly, some with barely a shot fired against them, and captured the village of Neuve Chapelle itself within a few hours. It seemed like the breakthrough Haig had dreamed of was actually happening. The plan was working, but warfare is never that simple. While the center of the attack surged forward, problems were emerging on the flanks. On the northern edge of the assault, a small, undamaged section of German trench, protected by an orchard, had somehow survived the bombardment. From this strongpoint, German machine gunners poured devastating fire into the advancing British troops, pinning them down and inflicting horrific casualties. This single point of resistance created a bottleneck, disrupting the entire advance on that flank. A similar story unfolded on the southern flank. This highlighted the first major lesson of Neuve Chapelle, the all-or-nothing nature of artillery bombardments. If even a small section of the enemy's defenses survived, it could derail the entire operation. The second, and perhaps most critical problem, was communication. Once the troops left their trenches, they were almost completely cut off from their commanders. Field telephone lines were an immediate casualty of shell fire, and runners carrying messages were often killed or delayed in the chaotic, cratered landscape. This meant that the generals in the rear had no clear picture of what was happening at the front. They received fragmented, delayed, and often contradictory reports. Was the attack succeeding? Where was the resistance? Where should reinforcements be sent? They were trying to direct a complex battle in near-total blindness. This fog of war caused fatal delays. Hours were lost while commanders tried to figure out what was going on, hours during which the Germans were rushing reinforcements to the threatened sector. By the afternoon of the first day, the initial momentum was lost. The British troops were in and around Neuve Chapelle, but they were disorganized and exhausted. The German response, meanwhile, was swift and efficient. They launched a series of determined counterattacks, trying to reclaim the lost ground. The fighting devolved into a brutal, close-quarters struggle amidst the ruins of the village and the shattered trench systems. The battle that was meant to be a swift breakthrough turned into a grinding 3-day slog. The British tried to push forward on the 11th and 12th of March, but by then, the element of surprise was gone. The Germans had fortified their new defensive lines, and any further British advance was met with a wall of machine gun and artillery fire. The offensive had stalled. On the evening of March 12th, with casualties mounting and no further progress possible, the battle was officially called off. The British had captured a small salient, a bulge in the line about a mile deep and 2 miles wide. It was a tactical victory, but the strategic goal of capturing Orbers Ridge was nowhere near being achieved. The cost was staggering. In just 3 days of fighting, the British and Indian forces suffered over 11,000 casualties. The Germans lost a similar number. For such a small piece of ground, the price had been immense. So, what was the legacy of Neuve Chapelle? It was a battle of firsts and a harsh teacher. It demonstrated that a concentrated, well-planned artillery bombardment could indeed break a trench line. This lesson would be taken to heart, leading to ever larger and longer bombardments in future battles, culminating in the week-long barrage before the Somme. However, it also exposed critical weaknesses. It showed that success depended on absolutely perfect artillery performance, which was almost impossible to guarantee. More importantly, it laid bare the crisis of command and control on the industrial battlefield. Without reliable communication, a breakthrough could not be exploited. Generals couldn't react quickly enough to the rapidly changing situation at the front. Neuve Chapelle also revealed a severe shortage of artillery shells. The British had fired more shells in the opening 35 minutes than they had in the entire Boer War. The sheer expenditure of ammunition was unprecedented, and British industry simply couldn't keep up. This shell scandal of 1915 led to a political crisis back home, the fall of the government, and the creation of a new Ministry of Munitions under David Lloyd George to reorganize the entire British economy for total war. The battle proved that future victories would be won not just by soldiers in the trenches, but by factory workers at home. In the end, the Battle of Neuve Chapelle was a costly but vital learning experience. It was a bloody dress rehearsal for the much larger battles to come. It marked the moment the British Army began to understand the brutal realities and immense scale of industrial warfare. The methods tried here, the massive bombardment, the attempt at a rapid breakthrough, would be refined, expanded, and attempted again and again in the desperate search for victory on the Western Front. It was a tactical success, a strategic failure, and a grim signpost pointing the way to the attritional slaughter of the years that followed. Thank you for joining us on this look back at a pivotal, yet often forgotten moment of the First World War. If you found this interesting, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into military history. We'll see you next time.